more pressure on the enemy. They're winning.
right down to the very end of this process, which will be probably in a couple weeks. But the point is, this is just a process beginning.
The sort of major themes of your campaign and how you sort of intend to measure and enact it, and that is the idea of unity. If you could talk a little bit about what you see unity as being. There are some people who are defining it as being bipartisan. Others are saying it is what most of the people in the country, defined by some poll, might believe, or any sort of number of, or perhaps it's 50 plus 1, or 50 plus 2, or 75%. So given that it is such a key part of your message and your promise, can you talk and reflect a little bit more about what is unity when you see it and as you define it?
Randy, I think it makes up several of the issues, the points you made. One is unity requires you to eliminate the vitriol. Make anything that you disagree with about the other person's personality or their lack of integrity or they're not decent legislators and the like. So we have to get rid of that. And I think that's already beginning to change, but God knows where things go, number one. Unity also is trying to reflect what the majority of the American people, Democrat, Republican, Independent, think is within the fulcrum of what needs to be done to make their lives and the lives of Americans better. For example, if you look at the data, and I'm not claiming the polling data to be exact, but if you look at the data, you have, I think it's, I hope I'm saying it gets correct. You may correct me if I get the number wrong. I think it's 58% of the American people, including Republicans, Democrats, and Independents, think that we have to do something about the COVID vaccine. We have to do something about making sure that people who are hurting badly, can't eat, don't have food, are in a position where they're about to be thrown out of their apartments, etc., being able to have an opportunity to get a job, that they all think we should be acting. We should be doing more. Unity also is trying to get, at a minimum, if you pass a piece of legislation that breaks down on party lines, but it gets passed, it doesn't mean there wasn't unity. It just means it wasn't bipartisan. I prefer these things to be bipartisan because I'm trying to generate some consensus and take sort of the, how can I say it, the vitriol out of all of this. Because I'm confident from my discussions. There are a number of Republicans who know we have to do something about food insecurity for people in this pandemic. I'm confident they know we have to do something about figuring out how to get children back in school. And there's easy ways to deal with this. One, if you're anti-union, you can say it's all because of teachers. If you want to make a case, though, that it's complicated, you say, well, what do you have to do to make it safe to get in those schools? And we're going to have arguments. For example, I proposed that bipartisan. I thought it would increase the prospects of passage. The additional $1,400 in direct cash payments, folks. Well, there's legitimate reason for people to say, do you have the lines drawn the exact right way? Should it go to anybody making over X number of dollars or why? I'm open to negotiate those things. That's all. I picked it because I thought it was rational, reasonable, and it had overwhelming bipartisan support in the House would have passed. But this is all a bit of a moving target in terms of the precision with which this goes. You're asking about unity, 51 votes, bipartisan, et cetera. The other piece of this is that the one thing that gives me hope that we're not only going to sort of...
this is their feed.
Away from the ad hominem attacks on one another, is that there is an overwhelming consensus among the major economists at home and in the world that the way to avoid a deeper recession moving in the direction of losing our competitive capacity is to spend money now. From across the board, every major institution has said, if we don't invest now, we're going to lose so much altitude in terms of our employment base and our economic growth, it's going to be harder to reestablish it. We can afford to do it now. As a matter of fact, I think the response has been, we can't afford not to invest now. We can't afford to fail to invest now. And I think there's a growing realization of that on the part of all but some very, very hard-edged partisans, maybe on both sides. But I think there is a growing consensus. Whether we get it all done exactly the way I want it remains to be seen. But I'm confident that we can work our way through. We have to work our way through because, as I've said 100 times, there is no ability in a democracy for it to function without the ability to reach consensus. Otherwise, it just becomes executive fiat or battleground issues that get us virtually nowhere. I don't want to hold my colleague may know, the vice president, but I think there were very few debates on the Senate floor the whole last year on almost any issue. Well, that benefits no one. Doesn't inform anybody, doesn't allow the public to make judgments about who they think is right or wrong. So I am optimistic that it may take some time, but over the year, the way if we treat each other with respect, and we're going to argue like hell. I'm confident of that. I know that. I've been there. But I think we can do it in a way that we can get things done for the American people. Gosh, I don't trust you with a mic, huh? I don't know, man.
That's fine. I wouldn't either. Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate you taking the question. You mentioned just now that you might know in a couple of weeks. I ask whether it's more important for you to get something passed in a short time frame like that, or would you be willing to wait longer to get more bipartisan support? And might I also ask that one of the pillars is the vaccine funding. When do you think any American who wants to get the shot will be able to get the shot?
Well, I'll try to answer the three parts of your question as I heard them. One, time is of the essence. Time is of the essence. And I must tell you, I'm reluctant to cherry pick and take out one or two items here and then have to go through it again because these all are kind of, they go sort of hand in glove, each of these issues. Number one. Number two, we are optimistic that we will have enough vaccine, and in very short order. We, as you know, we came in office without knowledge of how much vaccine was being held in abeyance or available. Now that we're here, we've been around a week or so, we now have that. And we've gotten commitments from some of the producers that they will, in fact, produce more vaccine in a relatively short period of time and then continue that down the road. So I'm quite confident that we will be in a position within the next 3 weeks or so to be vaccinating people at the range of 1 million a day or in excess of that. That is I promise that we can get at least 100 million vaccinations. That's not people, because sometimes you need more than one shot of vaccination, but 100 million shots in people's arms of the vaccine. I think with the grace of God and the goodwill of the neighbor and the creek not rising, as the old saying goes, I think we may be able to get that to 1.5 million a day rather than 1 million a day. But we have to meet that goal of 1 million a day. And everything points that we're going to have, enough vaccine, B, enough syringes and all the paraphernalia needed to store, keep, inject, move into your arm the vaccine. 3, a number of vaccinators, people administering the vaccine, which is not an easy task. Of those who have those facilities, like the nursing homes and hospitals, they have people who do it, but they don't have the capacity to do everyone. And so I think we're leaning hard into areas where we produce more vaccinators. We feel confident we can do that. And thirdly, it's really important that we have the fora, the place, the facility, the circumstance where people can show up, stand in line, and get their vaccine without having to stand in line for 8 hours. Being able to pick up the phone, call the pharmacy, and get your name on the list, etc. All those mechanical things are really, they sound simple, but they're all consequential when we're trying to get out minimum of 100 million vaccinations in 100 days and move in the direction where we are well beyond that in the next 100 days so we can get to the point where we reach herd immunity in a country of over 300 million people. Does that answer your question? Oh, I know. I think it'll be this spring. I think we'll be able to do that this spring. And but it's going to be a logistical challenge that exceeds anything we've ever tried in this country. But I think we can do that. I feel confident that by summer we're going to be well on our way to heading toward herd immunity and increasing the access for people who aren't on the on the list, all the way going down to children and how we deal with that. But I feel good about where we're going, and I think we can get it done.
One more vaccine. Mr. President, one more vaccine.
Now, wait. I know he always asks me tough questions, and he always has an edge to them, but I like him anyway. So go ahead and answer the question.
That's nice. Thank you, Mr. President. So you just said that you think within 3 weeks or so
we'll be at the point where there are 1 million vaccines per day, but it seems like...
No, I think we'll get there before that. I said, I misspoke. I hope we'll be able to increase as we go on to get to the 1.5 million a day. That's my hope.
And then the follow-up to that would be, now that you're president and you're saying there's nothing we can do to change the trajectory of the pandemic in the next several months, what happened to 2 months ago when you were talking declaratively about I'm going to shut down the virus?
Well, I'm going to shut down the virus, but I never said I'd do it in 2 months. I said it took a long time to get here. It's going to take a long time to beat it. And so we have millions of people out there who have the virus. We're just, for the first day, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I've been doing other things this morning, speaking with foreign leaders, but one of the things I think this is one of the first days that the number has actually come down, the number of deaths and the number on a daily basis and the number of hospitalizations, et cetera. It's going to take time. It's going to take a heck of a lot of time. And we still have, as Dr. Fauci constantly points out, it's one thing when we have mass, how can I say it politely, mass disregard of the warnings about not wearing masks and wearing masks and social distancing and failure to social distance and people getting together on holidays in ways that weren't recommended, et cetera. We see, first thing that happens is we see the number of infections go up. Then you see the hospitalizations go up. Then you see the deaths go up. And so we're in this for a while. I mean, what are we now? 410,000 deaths? And there's going to be more. The prediction, as I said from the very beginning to getting here, after being sworn in, was the predictions were we're going to see somewhere between a total of 600,000 and 660,000 deaths before we begin to turn the corner in a major way. So, and again, remember, the vaccine, most of the people taking the vaccine, a vast significant number, require 2 shots, and they are an average of 3 weeks apart, and it takes time for it to be sure that you get to that 95% assurance rate. And so it's beginning to move, but I'm confident we will beat this. We will beat this, but we're still going to be talking about this in the summer. We're still going to be dealing with this issue in the early fall. And last point I'll make, and I know you're tired of hearing me saying it, particularly you may be tired of hearing me saying it, and that is that if we wear masks between now and the end of April, the experts tell us we can save 50,000 lives. 50,000 people otherwise would die. Thank you so very much.
Failed. Wow, okay, let's do a recap there. There was actually a lot to unpackage in that. Wow, okay. Kind of exciting. Let's give me 1 second here. I suppose while I prepare here, I can remind you to get your 4 free stocks with Robinhood. Because Robinhood is now offering us 4 free stocks, and you don't even have to deposit any money. To get free money without depositing any money. They just want you to link your bank account. Get 1 free stock within 24 hours, and the next show up on February 1st. Okay, let's go through some recap here, but not just recap. I want to add a little bit about stocks here, too. we got a lot of insight here. So, all right, okay, whew, okay. There's a lot to write down here. So here we go. Hey everyone, me Kevin here. Joe Biden just spoke and he gave us a lot of pretty decent insights in terms of what his plans are with COVID negotiations, but also with manufacturing and electric vehicles and investments into America. And whew, it's been a while since we've actually gotten a Q&A from him. We've gotten a lot of speeches from him, but not a Q&A. So we finally got some more context here in terms of what's going on and where his head is. Let's break it all down right now. So first, Biden opened up by talking about Made in America. And he talks about how he wants our recovery to basically use the American engine to build our economy back. And so what he says is he wants to spend taxpayer money like crazy to pump it right into the American economy. And he pretty strongly slammed Donald Trump multiple times at the beginning of his speech by suggesting that, hey, you know, the prior administration was all about buy American and you know, make America great again, essentially. He didn't actually use that slogan. But there were a ton of waivers at every single federal department in our country, at the federal government's level, where basically people could say, yeah, you know, can't find the headphones waiver, and then they go buy them from China or whatever. I'm making up the headphone example, but that's basically what Biden was saying, is people were just using waivers left and right to buy foreign-made products anyway. Biden's saying what he's going to do is different, because he's going to say, if you can't find the product you need made in America, then you need to explain yourself to the White House in terms of why you can't find it. And then what we're going to do is we are going to hook you up with a small business, potentially, and certainly with a focus on minority businesses as well, women-owned, black-owned, Latino-owned, whatever. And we are going to find you a local and small business, and we are going to get small businesses to be sources for made-in-America products. And by doing this, or to facilitate this, I should say, he is going to have a centralized, coordinated effort. Basically, he's creating another department in the government almost, and he's assigning a director, and the director will have a title of Director of Made in America, and that person will oversee all of that in the White House. And so this is really a way to make sure people are buying in America and buying American-made products. So that was kind of his explanation on that. Then he went really fast on this. Like, I'm going to go back and re-listen to this again, but I got some really good notes down. So these words were key here. He goes, additionally, hundreds of billions of dollars will be spent to modernize infrastructure and increase our competitive strengths in the world. Those are big words, and then he kind of defines these, and he goes down and says, American steel, American technology, American roads, bridges, ports, climate. Then we also have, gosh, I typoed this, but this had to do with green energy, basically. Faster transportation and a cleaner American goods. All of these items here are really like big, like ding-dongs on sort of a bell for companies like Caterpillar, steel manufacturing companies in America. You've got certainly the Tesla, potentially smaller companies. You got to be careful with the smaller ones like the SBE charging companies, the Blink charging companies, the NGA for electrifying fleet vehicles in America. These are some stocks that are probably going to digest what Biden just said over the next few days, and we might see some movement in these. A big thing he also went on to say is we are going to electrify America's fleet or a federal fleet of vehicles. That's pretty big as well, because electrifying a fleet of vehicles, and we've kind of been chatting here in not only the chat but also in Discord, we're kind of thinking, so what are federal vehicles? I mean, you've got FBI, you've got, DEA vehicles, you've got Department of Homeland Security, you've got the United States Postal Service. So we saw the stock market react a little bit over at Workhorse stock, which is waiting for a United States Postal Service contract to electrify Postal Service vehicles. A lot of excitement around this. And it certainly helped as well that after he was talking about electrifying America's fleet, he started saying that we're going to spend hundreds of billions of dollars into research and development in markets where we can compete better, like battery technology, biotechnology, and clean energy. And then requiring that at least 50% of components that go into these vehicles be made in America. Those are big statements here. So those are huge boosts to companies that have manufacturing plants in America. Battery tech, clean energy, and made in America, right there, those three things, Tesla, Tesla, Tesla. Look, you got the Fremont facility, you got the Austin facility, you got the Nevada Gigafactory, you got Cato, you got New York. Tesla, this has Tesla written all over it. But it potentially also has GM written all over it with their new electrification push. Ford's a little bit behind. But these are huge statements here. Now we'll see. I mean, this is really just kind of a glimpse into Biden's manufacturing plans here. We'll talk stimulus in just a moment. But these are big. We'll buy from all of America, small business, black, brown, every region, national network of manufacturing, national manufacturing partnership to connect suppliers across the country. Offshore renewable energy was another thing he talked about. Let's see here. Then he jumped on over from this segment on sort of energy, which is very, very important for obviously the energy space. I mean, you can even think like solar companies, the TAN ETF, you could think Enphase, certainly the other solar stocks. But moving on from some of these stocks, which the words he said here are big for that. Let's go on to the other items which he mentioned, which COVID relief is one of them. But quickly, he also mentioned wants to see more ventilation in schools. So you might look into, who knows, you want to look into a stock like Honeywell. Is Honeywell going to be a potential supplier for better ventilation systems in schools? Or, is it going to be 3M providing better HEPA filtration? Who knows? But then we get into COVID relief, and we get some really neat insights into COVID relief here. So what he says is, and let me just back up for a moment and say, there's been a little bit of frustration with Biden in part because we kind of thought that he would come into office and go, boom, here's my plan. And he would kind of just pull out, here you go. Here's the bill. On page 32, this is what we're doing with stimulus checks. Okay. Page 33, this is what we're doing with unemployment. We didn't get that, right? Instead, what we got is, I'm going to nickname him Mr. Phone Call. So, Mr. Phone Call likes negotiating a lot with people himself, and that's what he did for 40 years as a legislator, so he's got a lot of experience doing this, and we know that. But a big goal that he has and what he conveyed is not only just removing the hate and resentment, the vitriol between Democrats and Republicans, but he's literally trying to get on the phone with people, like Republicans, for example, say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think about it? And it really sounded like he was almost trying to basically handhold each individual senator or representative that might be in the middle to get them to understand where he's coming from, why he came up with, $1,400 stimulus checks or money for unemployment set at $400 or a $1.9 trillion package. When he was asked in questions if he would be open to breaking apart the stimulus package, he said that he's not open to cherry picking individual items out of the package, that he believes everything is necessary, but he did say that he is open to negotiating the $1,400 stimulus checks. Now, this is something that we've seen a lot of talk about with the press secretary, where she suggests that, hey, maybe we can talk about targeting something a little bit more. This is something we've heard on the bipartisan calls as well regarding stimulus. So this was something insightful. So it kind of gives us an idea that, all right, maybe we don't have a formal plan yet, but hey, maybe he's got some tricks up his sleeve to manually negotiate these things. Now, I will say, Mitch McConnell, just literally minutes before Joe Biden began speaking, said that Biden's $1.9 trillion relief proposal, quote, misses the mark. And McConnell called for a, quote, targeted package and, quote, not an imprecise deluge of borrowed money that would direct huge sums to those who don't need it. So a little bit, here's McConnell finally making some remarks on stimulus, and they're not exactly what we want to hear. They're almost kind of the opposite of what we want to hear on stimulus. But Biden really gave this push that, hey, ultimately, he prefers to have a bipartisan plan. But worst case scenario, he said it himself, look, if we need to use the budget reconciliation process, it'll depend on how negotiations go, but ultimately that'll be up to the House and Senate. So he basically said, look, I'm going to try to negotiate for a few weeks with Republicans. If it doesn't work, and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, if you guys think you need to use budget reconciliation to slam dunk this COVID relief bill, fine. That'll be up to you guys. You do it. But he is looking for his $1.9 trillion package. He's open to negotiating some parts of it, but he is looking for that. He was then asked in questions, hey, but I mean, like, you're talking about unity, but how could you have unity if you end up using the budget reconciliation method? You slam dunk something with 51 votes. And Biden actually said something,